So Andy, we're kind of in the middle of a lot of conversation about television, video, the new fronts, the upfronts, a lot of interesting developments just going on. Like, as a marketer, what's exciting for you about how television is changing or new forms of video that are emerging?
Sure. I think the biggest thing for me is the ability to create whatever you can to engage the audience. I think in the past, you might have been limited to the media outlets that were provided. 30-second spot, print ad, out-of-home radio is pretty finite rules, if you will. I think the cover's been torn off. You can create a 2-minute film, you can create a 60-minute film. You can create a podcast. You have the ability to express brands in many different forms and create what I really call branded entertainment again, more than just straight content. And consumers and individuals are digesting that in all new formats, so you get to really experience and play with how people can understand a brand. And it's changed the way you go to market, it's changed the way you think about creative, it's the way you think about media. Nothing's sort of off the table, everything's open.
So do you buy that extra sort of visibility, or do you push for a viral hit and social sharing, and then how do you calculate success?
It's a mix. So you can't go into a brief and say, hey, I want a viral hit. There's a reason it's called viral. It just has to happen. You have to know when you've made great content. I think it is a real mix. I don't think you can say, I'm only going to do a digital piece. I'm only going to do a print piece. I think you have to think about it as there's going to be a TV component that's going to be broad, big, mass reach. What's your digital component that's going to create sort of that bottom-up piece? And then the social piece is how are you appealing to the audiences in the different social formats? Not all social's equal. And you have to know how to dial up and dial down, and you shouldn't use the same content in every place. Each piece can reflect or play off each other, but it should be different. I really believe that just taking one piece and transporting it into another medium isn't the answer. Creating content that's right for the medium, that's right for the audience, is how to best connect with the people you're trying to reach.
So what would be the form or content of native advertising for GE?
It changes depending on what we're going for. Last year we created a TV show with Nat Geo called Breakthrough, and it was a 60-minute TV show, and we were executive producers with Nat Geo involved in it. So that's one. The podcast I mentioned, we created a serial podcast called the GE Podcast Theater. It's called The Message. Again, very different forms of, quote, advertising. It's more entertainment. And then we also look at different social streams and what can we do in different places to intersect the user. We've done a lot with Snapchat and geo-filters and given them the opportunity to sort of experience the brand. I think native advertising, just inserting yourself into the feed isn't really, the world's going to go to a much more dynamic place where it's getting into the experience and getting into the conversation with your message more than just trying to disrupt.
Cool. And what are your thoughts about viewability? Because the feed, that's one thing we've been speaking to a lot of people about. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's a big emphasis on getting video into the social feed,
sure.
But the viewability issue, it's hard. First of all, for the media buyers, and then also for the creatives. And what is a view, or how does that work in your opinion?
I think it hasn't fully been figured out. I think you can classify a view as 3 seconds. That's not really a view yet. You really have to engage. I think that's the true measure of something that's been viewed. Completion and engagement. It's a harder task these days because there's so much bifurcation in how you're experiencing content. You're experiencing content all the time, and there's so many channels that it's not an easy medium to make a hit. I think from a creative standpoint, there's two things that have to happen. One, you have to have great work. I think in this day and age, the expectation is great work. The expectation truly is to engage and entertain, more than anything else. I think brands are expected to entertain as much as Hollywood is expected to entertain. So if you don't hit those marks, you're going to miss altogether. And then finding the right placement so people actually can find it and not treat a view as 3 seconds and really want to digest that. And that really depends on what type of content you're creating. You might create content that is only 3 seconds, then you got a view. But if you have something longer, you have to figure out a way to attract them. And that's that's really playing within the medium and understanding how people are working within that space.
Cool. And finally, we're heading to Cannes pretty soon,
Yep.
a few weeks. And what are your hopes in terms of A, what you will be learning, and B, what you'd like to share with your colleagues? And what do you think is sort of important or top of mind, or what do you expect to share or to learn?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I want to learn is I want to see what's new. I want to see what's coming out from a technology standpoint in the content development space. I want to know what the next area to engage consumers with is. I want to know how people are sort of breaking the mold of what's expected. I think the beauty of Cannes, more than anything, is every year you see some of the most amazing media and creative ideas on the planet. I mean, people really who stretch the limit of what anyone can do. And I want to see what's out there, what's been going on the past year, and what people are talking about for the upcoming year. And then I really want to see, you know, what work is standing out more than any other, and who's doing it. I think you never can see enough of that. I think sometimes, you know, when you're in your own brand or when you're in your own little space in New York, you fall into a bubble, and Cannes opens that up every year. And it allows you to sort of experience new things.
And as a gigantic brand and someone who's come out of the advertising world, what would you have to say to the other to the creative agencies? What is your hope as you know, speaking broadly?
Sure.
What is your hope around executions, about creativity?
I think it really comes down to understanding who your brand is and what your expression is, and never sort of repeating, challenging what really is going to make something stand out. I think more and more we fall back on what have we seen in the past and how do we repeat it. And I think if you can really stretch the limit of creativity and shock people, not shock people for shock value, but shock people in amazement, that's what captures the imagination. I think more and more the advertising world, the content development world should be capturing people's amazement. And the more we lean on that, the more we engage, the more we feel like we connect with people, the better the work becomes. And the more creative agencies think like that, the better they'll be.